Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Benslimane, and I've spent the last year serving international students living and studying in the United States. I have to admit, when I first entered the social journalism program, I came in with a bit of an ego. I'm an international student myself. I'm from Morocco, and so I'm actually one of the more than 1 million international students currently enrolled in the last academic year. And so I began my year thinking I knew what international students needed because I knew what I needed, which was visibility. I had gone through the process of being an international student. I did my undergrad at Boston University, and so I went through the process. And I came into the Social J program wanting to show everyone the challenges faced by international students, about all the different immigration processes that we have to learn about to be able to enter and to be able to work on campus or obtain a job after we graduate. And so I also wanted to show the public about how U.S. immigration and labor laws are basically built to attract international students to invest approximately $39 billion in the U.S. economy every year and swiftly send us back home. So I remember asking this question to my professors, Carrie Brown and Jeff Jarvis, in our community engagement class, our first semester, and that question was, if what a community needs is visibility, isn't giving them that visibility a form of service? And so you can see how I sort of twisted that in order to be able to convince my professors to just produce the content that I want. I wanted to make videos, I wanted to write articles about my community, and what I realized and what they said essentially was, nice try, but no. Social journalism is about a lot more than that. It's about finding out about your community's needs and trying to find ways to serve those needs. And so I started from scratch, and I did something that sadly and unfortunately is being considered something that's innovative and groundbreaking in journalism, which is, listening. And I asked international students what they needed and what they wanted to learn about and what they needed from the journalism industry. So in order to do that, I interviewed more than 50 international students outside of schools, in person, on camera, on the phone. I filmed Vicky, who's also an international student from Germany. I bribed students with donuts outside of Columbia University, and it worked. And what I found out, I got 3 major insights from all of this journalism work. One of my major insights was that many international students want to stay after graduating. Of all the international students that I spoke to throughout the course of my research, none of them said that they wanted to return home right after school. Many said that they wanted to gain professional experience for at least a few years before returning back home. And a lot of them also said, I want to just stay here and build my life here. And actually, according to the International Education Institute, the number of students staying on after graduation has risen by 19% in the last academic year, indicating an increased interest in obtaining a career experience post-grad. I also found out that international students are ill-informed when it comes to the work and immigration procedures that apply to them. So when you come in as an international student, you're constantly faced with all these acronyms. And if you don't know what any of these mean, don't worry, because international students also don't know what this means a lot of the time as well. And just to give you guys a quick primer as we move forward in this presentation, for example, a normal college student wants to intern somewhere to gain a career experience. Polish your resume, write a few cover letters, send it out, go to interviews, get your internship. An international student has to apply for this form of work authorization called CPT. They have to get permission from their advisor, get permission from the international's office, and then convince their employer that it's worth it to hire an international student to be an intern, even though they probably will have difficulty hiring them after. And we'll go into that as well later. And H-1B also, so to continue on, so that's how, if you want to intern, you get CPT, curricular practical training. If you want to work after school as an international student, you have to apply for something called OPT. You hear this all the time as an international student, OPT, OPT, OPT. It means optional practical training. And so they put that word optional in there to try and dissuade you from going. It's optional, you can stay and get career experience, or you can go back home, it's fine. And so you have to apply for that 3 months before you graduate, and a lot of international students find it hard to obtain jobs on OPT because a lot of the times it lasts 1 year, unless you're a STEM graduate. If you have a degree in science, tech, engineering, or math field, then you get a 2-year extension, a 3-year OPT permit, and that changes everything. But if, like most students who only have 1 year, if you do want to stay and gain more experience after that, you have to apply for another work visa. And these two at the bottom are two types of work visas. H-1B non-immigrant work visa is the most popular work visa amongst international students hoping to stay. It's a lottery-based program, which essentially means if a company wants to hire you as a foreigner and keep you, they have to apply for this specialty occupation visa. They have to basically in the petition, convince the U.S. government that they have to hire you over an American. And then the application goes through the U.S. Immigration Service, and it's run through a random selection, and you either get it or you don't. I myself didn't get it. I went through that process and I didn't get it as well. I also found out that those seeking H-1B sponsorship, they want to find an easy way to find out which companies sponsor for H-1Bs. You're graduating, it's your last year of school, and you're trying to figure out which companies to apply to, which will be worth it for you to like sit down and write a cover letter. So that's something that I've been getting a lot in my research. So I formed an action plan. I figured out that, during my practicum, I was going to continue the visibility and explainer work, something that I initially set out to do. I thought that was still important. There is value in publishing stories, and in making videos and trying to get the word out there. I also decided that I was going to create a bi-weekly email newsletter called Students with Borders, and no, that is not a reference to Doctors with Borders, but a reference to the various immigration procedures that international students have to navigate during their time here. And you can find that at studentswithborders.tilda.ws. And I'll go into that a little bit in a minute. I also decided that I would create an H-1B sponsor search tool. I would try and find all the data for companies that have tried to sponsor international students for H-1B work visas and get that on a website, and that's at dotheysponsor.com. I bought the domain, but it's still not attached to the domain. Don't check it out just yet. I will show you a demo though. So my visibility work, so I created a Medium publication called International Students of New York. I wrote stories about different international students. I wrote a profile about an international student called Sohail, who is a journalist in exile from Iran, and his student visa is running up, and if he can't find a work visa, then, if he goes back to Iran, he gets jailed. If he goes back to Germany, where he has, refugee status, he doesn't speak German. So it's just the kind of situations that international students sometimes find themselves in. I wrote H-1B explainers. I also made a video about how international students themselves feel about the H-1B work visa, for example. And so I'll show you a quick snippet. You might recognize some of these students. They're CUNY-J students.
That's bullshit.
Oh, shoot.
Can I say that? Okay, well, it's bullshit.
Sorry, the audio is like... Whew. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Obviously.
That's bullshit. Can I say that? Okay, well, it's bullshit.
H-1B, it's the most common, I would say, vast majority of the work visas are H-1B category.
I know that the H-1B is necessary for me to continue working in the United States after my OPT period.
It takes time, it takes money, and a lot of patience and luck because it's also through a lottery. So it's really nerve-wracking.
It is a lottery. There's a chance that you may not get through, which makes companies even more apprehensive to invest money and time, because you spend all that cash and you don't get through. What's the sense?
Personally, think that the H-1B, running a lottery, is an offense to everybody in this process, because I believe that each applicant needs to be judged on their merits, not on the chances or luck.
As part of my visibility work, set up an Instagram account called International Students of New York. That's modeled after Humans of New York. And so within that channel, my goal was to, give visibility to international students and give them a platform to talk about their experiences, and also to be able to interview international students and find out more about their needs. So this is, for example, an international student from Morocco. Her name is Kenza Mandri. She writes about, she says, the reality of it is that most employers won't give international graduates a chance when they can give it to an American graduate, given the costs associated with sponsorship. And then, the second goal, my practicum, creating this newsletter. It's called Students with Borders. It goes out every 2 weeks. I provide different guides, news updates. I feature different students and student writing. I give students the opportunity to submit questions. And then, with the website that I mentioned earlier, I found all this data on the labor certification registry of the U.S. Department of Labor website. And just to show you a little snippet, if you want to know, for example, which company sponsor, you can go on the site and, for example, Vox Media, and it tells you, based on all the data that we have for H-1Bs, in the 2016 fiscal year, this is what this is who Vox sponsored, the New York Times. They sponsored data engineers, so it kind of gives you a sense of what kinds of roles are being sponsored. And then I also, sorry, this is just a few more slides. I measured my impact. My numbers aren't like, they're not great in terms of what you would traditionally consider as amazing impact-driven metrics. But I measured my impact in terms of what people were telling me in the comment section. Like, thank you, I wish I had access to that while in the US in reference to my newsletter. Or, preach, this is exactly my struggle right now. Or someone saying, student Constanza sent me that the newsletter was a great resource. I also, through my work, was able to build the International Students Organization and build a community here at the school, which has been amazing. And so, yeah, thank you so much for listening, and feel free to contact me at